Good morning. You are watching Beyond the Headlines on Freedom Square TV, reaching you from our studios in Enugu, the coal city state, Southeast Nigeria. Today, we turn the spotlight on an issue that touches the very soul of our democracy: democratic governance, accountability, and neglected citizenry. Nigeria has proudly celebrated over 2 decades of uninterrupted democracy since 1999. In that period, we witnessed peaceful transitions, power, greater civic reforms, and a more vibrant media space. These are commendable. But beyond these surface achievements lies a deeper question. Has democracy truly delivered for the ordinary Nigerian? When we talk about democracy, we are not only talking about elections every 4 years. We are talking about a system of governance rooted in inclusivity, transparency, and of course, accountability. Yet, for millions of Nigerians, democracy often feels distant. Institutions remain weak, corruption continues to thrive, and the people, especially those in rural areas, women, youth, and the vulnerable groups, feel excluded from the dividends of governance. Accountability is supposed to be the backbone of democracy, which is perhaps the weakest link in Nigeria's leadership structure. Too often, leaders act with impunity. Public funds are mismanaged, and oversight institutions are either too compromised or too weak to check excesses. And so, what we see is a widening gap between the rulers and the ruled. Citizens are neglected, left without quality education, reliable electricity, good roads, healthcare, or even security. The result is frustration, mistrust, and apathy, as many Nigerians begin to wonder whether their voices truly matter in the democratic process. This morning, we'll go beyond the headlines to ask the very hard questions. What actually is the state of Nigeria's democratic governance today? Why has accountability remained elusive? And how can government reconnect with the millions of neglected citizens whose hopes in democracy are fading? To unpack these issues, I'm being joined by a seasoned analyst and advocate of good governance, Mr. IFEANYICHUKWU, popularly known as Anioke. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. I'm humbled to be here.
Yes, it's actually always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, sir.
26 years into democracy, do you honestly believe Nigeria has made real progress in practicing true democratic governance? That's our first question.
Sir, when you want to interrogate a situation, you will look at it holistically. We, on paper and in the description, claim to be practicing democracy. Democracy is not elections. Nigerians think that democracy is election, just like a couple of days ago, there were some rerun elections, and we call it democracy. The chemistry of democratic system is much deeper than the surface we think about running for office. The description for democracy is participation of the people in their government so that they can be part of the government. We are not part of the government in Nigeria, so democracy is not working because the elements, the basic 7 elements of a democratic institution are absent. The only one we are managing to showcase is the constitutional condition for democracy. We have a constitution that says we want to practice democracy. That constitution alone ought to be married with other elements that will deepen the length, the breadth of democratic culture. One, you require to have agreed on a supreme document which you call the Constitution. That is one condition. Two, there is going to be economic condition for democracy. That is another condition. Then three, there ought to be the psychological and educational condition for democracy. If you do not understand the rules of democracy, you cannot participate in democracy, because democracy requires that you must be able to read and write. Then there are conditions of material and electoral system, or conditions for democracy, which you have the institution like INEC, the laws and rules to govern the electoral system for selection. Then there also has to be the necessary condition for the rule of law in democracy. Then you talk about the participation of the people in democracy. Critically, in this country, we are always looking at democracy by conducting election. The greatest institution you select is captured in our Constitution in Section 222. You will not present yourself to participate in the democratic system except you are sponsored by a association known as political party. That political party is like the breeding ground for leadership. That breeding ground for leadership is not for all comers. There are basic requirements you must meet before you become a member. You don't become a member by just subscribing to get a card. You will apply to become a member. There's prospectus. This is fundamental for you to now qualify to come out and say you want to participate in a democracy. People who have no job, who have no food to eat, cannot actively participate in a democracy. Then you now look at where they weaponize hunger. And when the people are morally bankrupt, that democracy requires fair play. You see people who are introducing fraud in a system that you want to use to now advance the development of the human, material, and infrastructure of the community. So we have a deliberate penchant to sabotage democracy. That is why it's not working in Nigeria. And it will never work until we go back to the fundamental. Because you talk about accountability in a democracy. Nigeria has selected to practice the presidential system of governance. Before then, we used to have a parliamentary system. These are the most novel two systems of achieving democratic ideals. In the presidential system of government we have selected is a very sophisticated, non-collegiatic system of democratic ideal. The president is the chief executive, just like the governors. They are independent of the legislature. The president can select his team from people, which is the popular currency, like people you know. Like our former president said, he selected people he knows. So the president is not accountable to the legislature. That is a fundamental.
But this is actually supposed to be a check on the president.
The check does not make you to assume the position of demanding for account. Remember the budgeting system. The governor and the president presents the budget, and the budget is approved by the legislature. Then they have oversight. But for accountability, the president and the governor are directly accountable to those who put them in office, because the legislature did not put them in office. Unlike the parliamentary system, in the parliamentary system, the prime minister is the chief executive, and the prime minister works in tandem with members who are parliamentarians. He cannot select his team outside the parliament. The parliament is where the prime minister owns accountability. Because if the citizenry are complaining about the policies which the prime minister is pursuing with his cabinet members who are in office and also in government, what the parliamentarians will do is to call for vote of confidence or to call for vote of no confidence, because they can hold the prime minister accountable. On that basis, if whichever way the vote swings, parliament is dissolved and you go. Fundamental issues that the absence of this knowledge, and you call yourself a politician, you must understand. So Nigerians are looking for the parliamentarians who are the National Assembly to hold our president accountable. It's impossible. They have oversights. They can come back and report, but for except impeaching the president or the governor, the president and the governor are accountable to those who elected them. Remember, their constituency is either within the precincts of the state or the federal constituency.
Yeah, well, that's a big one. If you said those who should hold the president account are the people, and then of course the governors. We had thought that it was the duty of the legislature, given the checks and balances. But be that as it may, you highlighted a few things, but I would like to ask you, in your view, based on your experience, based on your exposure and worldview, what would you say that are the biggest threats to democracy actually in Nigeria? When I mean democracy, I mean true democracy. Is it the issue of corruption that is pervasive everywhere, or pervasive as they would say? Or is it the issue of insecurity? Or more fundamentally, is it to weak institutions? Or all of the above?
The underbelly why our democracy is not working is that we narrowed the requirements only to getting your PVC and voting. Now, there are conditions you must have prior to practicing democracy. Poor nations cannot practice democracy because democracy costs money and material. One, here in Nigeria, there is a total absence of the citizens taking hold of the institution of building for democratic governance. You must make demand on the system. You have to have the intellectual condition, which requires education, disposition, understanding the rules of the game. You must have the economic condition. When you are poor, when you are so poor that somebody will offer you money to take away your right and misdirect your right in what you call voting? Is that democracy? Then the citizens must have the culture to stay within the rules of the game. You want to participate in government and fraud is introduced into it, people will come with fake name, people will come outside the realm that we want to practice democracy. And then the material and electoral condition are not being well laid down. In terms of mobilization of citizen participation, it's not the job of INEC. INEC is like an invigilator that sets the rule. It is the political party wholly that will mobilize the people, that will recruit members, that will look for people with character, that will look for people who can give them account for selecting them. So when you now feel that once you hold election, so the citizens must be educated that they must crusade by asking questions, because the legislature cannot superintend the governor. Here we are still having problem to have the governor come and address the legislature, or the president coming to address the legislature. We are still having problems. So it shows that the governor and the president are not accountable to the legislator. The legislator will check and balance. The citizens will protest. The citizens will go to court. The political parties will initiate processes to indict those in authority, so that when they present these issues and challenge the system, because democracy is embedded in rule of law, and you cannot participate in democracy once every 4 years, or the regime of the election. It's not by that. You must be awake. You must watch the budget. You must look at the expenditure profile and the resources. You will hear our chief executives, who are like the president, the governors, talk about building projects, but there's no accountability. The system and the people will just, they will tell you to wait till another 4 years, because they don't understand that it is embedded in continuous interrogation of the citizens who gave power. So this is why in your intro, you are talking about the neglect of the citizens, because the citizens, after electing a governor or president, become handicapped because they don't understand the conditions precedent for you to have a democracy. It's something like a town hall where the community will call for a meeting to ask why this road has not been built. It is not for the legislature who you elected to go and now hold press conference, and question that the road have not been built, because he has an opportunity in the parliament to raise this as an issue.
Okay, the Nigerian citizen, the citizenry of Nigeria are said to be, so to speak, docile. Maybe a harsh word to use, but the point that citizens' participation in democratic norms in Nigeria seem to be absent. What do you think should be going forward? Because we've noted that before now, our citizens they're not sure, they're not vigorous, they are not questioning, they're not asking questions. They just say, well, if the president is from my side, well, let him do whatever he wants. If he's from the other side, let them do. Now, without a vibrant citizenry, democracy cannot thrive. What would be a prescription? 1, 2, 3 for the citizens, in order to do what? To effectively check either their local government, either their governor, or Mr. President.
First of all, there is a very serious misunderstanding of what democracy is all about. There is this nonchalant attitude of the elite in the society not participating in democracy by this enfranchising themselves by desire not to vote. They feel that there is no need to go and vote. They have, by their own election, decided to make democracy not to work by design. Then, the constitutional requirement for democracy, particularly for a third world country like Nigeria, the very first thing we will do if we want to change the climate as you're trying to prescribe is that this Nigeria must look at its constitution again. That is the primary document with which every other thing is hinged. This country needs to be restructured. Restructuring it is to first of all make it to become a people's nation, like we had before the military stepped into governance in 1965-66. That is what the patriots are talking about. But they are not able to mobilize for acceptance within the people because the intellectual group, the bureaucrats, and the political class are not in tandem for good governance. Where the intellectual group, the business group, the bureaucrats have no meeting point, agenda setting becomes very difficult. And that is what we're suffering, the anemic in participation in Nigeria. So when you talk about democracy, you find out that we, the people, because we don't understand where accountability lies, that the citizens must agitate and expand the realm of public law. Today, the corridor for you to challenge public law in Nigeria, public interest litigation, have been narrowed by a recent decision by the Supreme Court in the case of OKONKWO against Ganifawa. You can no longer go to court to challenge certain issues where they will ask you, where do you stand? They ask it, they put it in legal parlance, where is your local standard? That decision is bad for democracy. It's a very current decision. Those who are familiar with the law will know what I'm talking about. Because in a democratic system, accountability in presidential system is the citizens that will demand accountability. But in parliamentary system, accountability is in the legislature because those who are ministers are also in government. They can challenge the prime minister. They can pass a vote of no confidence. In presidential system, you don't pass vote of no confidence because you have no locus to do that. But because we don't understand
the National Assembly can pass a vote of no confidence.
You cannot, because the National Assembly, you cannot superintend the governor. If you want to impeach him, you impeach him. The provisions are there in the Constitution.
Okay. Last Saturday, just this 2 days ago, in about 16 electoral constituencies, senatorial, federal, and state, INEC, which of course had the onerous responsibility to conduct elections in Nigeria, conducted the by-elections. At the end of it all, APC took a sweeping 12 victories, leaving APGA with 2, PDP with 1, And then I think these other parties, I don't know whether they were able to even get anything. In Enugu, it was again the fourth time for Enugu South constituency. It was again nothing happened. So there was no use of electoral system. There was no use of what is they call it now, the model system. All those things were absent. It was just manual and physical. First of all, assess what happened on Saturday, particularly in your home state, Anambra State. And then you may have a global look at what happened in Nigeria.
Yes, I am in Nigeria, but the election took place in what you call senatorial constituency, in southern senatorial constituency in my state, in Anambra. That comprised 7 local governments, Newe, North and South, Ihala, and Agwata. You have Urumba North and South. So comprising 7 local governments for the replacement of the late distinguished Senator IFEANYICHUKWU of blessed memory, who could not complete his tenure. Then in Onitsha State, a House of Assembly constituency, Onitsha 1, there was another by-election to select a representative that will finish the tenure of late Honorable Justice, I forgot his last name, who was kidnapped and
murdered.
Okay,
yes.
So that was the 2 elections that were held. Now, the results as published by INEC. Remember that since the inception of our democracy, the citizens cannot question an election. These are issues that need to be interrogated. The citizens who voted in an election, who the election were conducted by for, cannot question it. That is the Supreme Court decision decided by our Supreme Court. So it is only those who participate in that election as candidates that can question an election. So if democracy is government of the people, for the people, by the people, that decision needs to be revisited. Again, in that election, because the 7 elements I enumerated that are conditions precedent to have a democratic community, which will be to deepen democracy and the depth of democracy and the width of democracy, so that it will be all embracing, were totally absent. The only thing we had was the material condition, which is an electoral condition, which you have the institution of INEC. The rules of the game are not even known to by the participants in that election. How are results collated and the rest of them? Where do you vote? You say we have a secret ballot election, the accreditation of voters and the system, you identify yourself with the biometrics and the rest of them are the requirements set up by INEC. The transmission of the election is still within the discretion of INEC because of the pronouncement of the Supreme Court in the case of Atiku, Obi, and our president, Bola Tinubu. So these are issues that have made the election incumbent before starting. Now, how was this election won and lost? It was mercantile. From all the reports, alleged reports we were getting from people who were on ground, shows that it was a stock market. you pay somebody money and then he will vote for whoever that pays him. That is introducing fraud into the election. And you know that those who are participating in Nigerian democracy have no voice. They cannot complain according to law. You cannot. All you have to do is to, in frustration, you go home. You see them selling votes and the rest of them. Even a person who witnessed selling of a vote or were able to capture it cannot present it to the authorities to cancel that election. So these are part of the problem. We need a leader, an intellectual leader that is deep in knowledge, that will look at the mechanics of building our democratic institution. So it was all money business. Because you cannot tell me how many number of people are card-carrying members of all these political parties that presented candidates. In the presidential system that I'm familiar with in America, before you be on the ballot, the electoral institution will know the strength of your membership within that precinct. Here in Nigeria, we don't, INEC is just interested in drawing budgets of money. There's no intellectual input in the system, the mechanism to make sure that this, our electoral system, is in bed with the citizens. So I heard that the results in the senatorial constituency was about 90,000.
I think the Abuja man had 90,000 votes.
The Abuja candidate won with 90,000. Then the second runner-up of INEC had about 19 or 20,000, 19 something thousand.
Yes.
And the other person had about 5,000 or so. So in totality, we are talking about that in that particular precinct, how we interrogate that the governor of Anambra State, sitting governor in Anambra State, won to become governor with 112,000 votes in the entire state. 112,000 votes to become governor. Whereas in this 1/3 of the constituency, the electoral turnout is more than the number of voters that elected the governor in the entire district. This is an issue that, as we move on, will be interrogated. So, who are the voters? I know that in the Ihala local government, about 4 or 5 communities are deserted. So it's painful. It's painful that our generation is being wasted, and people are not thinking. People are rejoicing that they won an election. The people, the community is suffering. We are degenerating because everything is money. People have paid, and who are the constituent people that when you win an election, you will see the populace that voted rejoicing that their candidate won. But there's nobody rejoicing except the political parties that use money, so-called, to buy the votes. So there is a lot of scientific research. The universities we have are not interested in studies. These are things we really need to go and study and look at and see. Some of these people will be prosecuted for criminal conduct. Because how can you tell me that 20,000 for APC, 6,000 for ADC, and 90,000 for APGA? If you compute these numbers, you are getting close to 130,000 votes assigned to candidates, not those that against what number of voters in that precinct. I'm just taking that nuclear zone into this thing. So, and if you look at what is happening and the rest of them, we still, I hope somebody will go to court to set aside the results.
Okay, you let's you hope somebody will go to court to set aside.
You have to be a participant to
do that.
So because our democracy is narrow that the citizens cannot even demand for account.
Okay, we'll go on a short break. When we come back, we're going to again look at the issue of accountability, because it's key to what we're discussing today. Sometimes when you look at the revenue coming to the federal government, to the state and the local government, and how do people ask for accounts? How those monies are spent? Because the humongous account, with the subsidy removal and all that, it appears both states and local governments are getting more money. What are they using it for? And are people conscious? Are they asking the right questions? That will be what we'll discuss when we come back. Don't go anywhere.
This is Freedom Square TV.
This is Freedom Square TV.
This is Freedom Square TV.
Freedom Square TV is your gateway to powerful business exposure and advertisement. Yes, you heard me right. I said it's your gateway to powerful business exposure and advertisement. We deliver their message to the right audience through professional media coverage, creative business promotion, and targeted advertising solution. Partner with us to grow your brand, boost and increase your visibility.
Freedom Square TV delivers accurate, timely news covering politics, business, and society, keeping viewers entertained, informed, and empowered every day. Keep watching Freedom Square TV.
Freedom Square TV, where script comes to life.
You are still watching Beyond the Headlines on Freedom Square TV, and my guest is still IFEANYICHUKWU OKONKWO. Before we went on that short break, I made a point that accountability in Nigerian democratic governance is a big issue. Every month, there's a sharing formula. Every month, both the federal government, state, and local government share the commonwealth of the nation. And with subsidy gone, it would appear that there'll be more money in the public space for both the president, the governors, and the local government administration. But it would appear there's little accountability. It would appear, and obviously so, that Nigerians don't ask questions. That nobody will ask. This cannot ask the local government chairman, what have you done? What are you doing with our money? It's almost like a taboo, even asking the governor. Because governors are emperors in Nigeria. And then how dare you ask Mr. President? So, what's the role of citizens in all this? And how can we bring these leaders to financial accountability?
This is what we have been trying to interrogate in this program. Before you can take a stand on an issue, you must first of all understand that issue. Then you can make your findings to interrogate it. I will start with illustration of an example. There is a decided Supreme Court case in this country, the case of Adesanya against the President of Federal Republic of Nigeria. The issue in that matter was that Adesanya was a senator in the First Republic or Second Republic, Shagari's government. Adesanya, in the floor of the Senate, was asking for accountability, questioning certain issues, which at the end of the day, he lost. The majority carried the day. Adesanya, because of his disposition as a legal mind, but without understanding the fundamental of the presidential system of governance, file an action in court to raise the same issue that he was defeated. The Supreme Court said yes, Adesanya. The Federal Attorney General raised the issue that Adesanya does not have a feet to stand to raise that issue. The Supreme Court, in the lead judgment in that case, disagreed with the Federal Attorney General that Adesanya has local standi, but that he cannot take two bites of the pie, having canvassed and lost in the parliament. It's a fundamental case that legal minds will have to look at, because it's all about democracy. Practically. So what the court told Adesanya and told Nigeria is that Adesanya cannot be a member of the assembly, National Assembly, and at the same time become an activist. This is the window I am trying to educate my people this morning. American presidential system, if you see what President Trump is doing in America today, the House, after voting, the theater will close. It is the members of the communities that are going to court challenging the act as President Trump has made pronouncement on. So here in Nigeria, the condition for democracy, the psychological condition for democracy, is that the citizens are the people who will hold the executive, who is our president, and the governor, and the local government accountable by agitating, by challenging, and demanding for account. We are not doing that. The courts are also hostile. I have a pending case where I generated the issue of this local government independent because I'm the first person in this country and the only person who had a judgment of the Federal High Court about an executive, a governor of a state not conducting local government election or creating the condition to conduct local government election. The court, the Federal High Court, awarded me 5 million naira damages. That they denied me the opportunity to participate in my community government. That government, that judgment, the Anambra State government have tried to appeal that judgment and have continued to defeat them. Now I went back to court to ask for account. This account I'm asking for is an issue why you have now brought it up. In the court, I am saying that those who superintended government in Anambra State within the tranche of time that I had that judgment should account to the people. The people are docile, they are sleeping, they don't know what I'm doing. I've been fighting to get that matter to be heard in court. This is the genesis of the federal government going to court to make a pronouncement on the monies of the local government being paid direct to them, which has not been implemented. And the citizens are waiting for who? We, the citizens. Because we have now, in the latest decision I told you about, OKONKWO against Ganifawa, the Supreme Court justices have said that except you have special interest, you cannot challenge a public policy. Very dangerous decision. So they have decided to nullify Adesanya's case, decided to nullify the Court of Appeal decision on Ganifawa against the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So now, Sidon Luke is what we have to be doing. So tell me, is it who that would demand account? Because of the system we are practicing. In the parliamentary system, the parliament, the ministers, the cabinet in that parliament questions interrogate the prime minister because they are in power and also in government. Here, the separation of powers in the presidential system have left and insulated the executive, that the executive is not accountable to the legislature. I don't want anybody to take me on this issue because they pass the budget. They don't review the budget to see what percentage of it have, even if when you come again and the eyes will have it. So we have a fundamental issue of the conditions that will enable democracy to flourish. So it's what you might call is a terminal illness.
Okay, apart from so to speak, the citizens, what practical role can the civil society, actually, the media, play in demanding accountability without fear?
Don't overload the media. First of all, the media is not a ghost. Somebody owns the media. Incidentally, the people who own the media are the same people who are demanding accountability from. That is why everybody will welcome and cherish this new media that we now have, that everybody with his phone is now a reporter or an activist. Because those who own the print and the electronic media in Nigeria are, when we were studying geography, they call it agents of the nation. They're all part of the people that have kept us down. Government give them advert. You see all these broadcasts they do, advertising government event, and then the media will go and hold courts to interrogate government. Then you won't get the advert. And so we have been encapsulated in a bubble. So what we have to do is that Nigerians must take interest in politics. You must take interest. You don't have to become a partisan politician. When I see very knowledgeable people with 3 or 4 degrees, they tell you they are not politicians. I say, what a display of ignorance. You don't have to be a partisan politician, but you must be interested in how decisions are made. Even civil servants can join political parties.
Yeah.
But the only difference is that you don't contest for office while still being a civil servant. But the religion here is, please don't talk, don't see, and pretend you didn't see anything. So we are not in tune with creating the enabling conditions for a democratic society.
Okay, let's just come home and let's look at the neglected citizens. There's no doubt that citizens in Nigeria, they get the short end of this democratic stick. That's not debatable. It's obvious. Many Nigerians, especially in rural areas, they will still lack basic necessities. They will lack electricity, water, good roads, healthcare. What has democracy not translated into an improved quality of life for the masses?
The democracy we are practicing today is envisioned by the military. The Constitution from 1979 till date is still a product of military intellectual re-engineering our society. The basic problem we have is that we need to sit back and understand what is democracy again. If we believe that democracy is government of the people, by the people, for the people, we now need to understand that issue of locus standi in public law must be re-examined. We can't leave it for lawyers. It must be re-examined. Because how can I, as a voter, not challenge an election I know that did not represent our voice. What the material condition and electoral system can do is to say that before a voter will challenge a result of any precinct or any particular election, that there must be, if the registered voters in that particular constituency is 100, there must be 50% or 1/4 or 1/3. But to deny us a voice in the system that we are using to select our destiny is creating anemic democracy. So it is difficult for the citizens to participate. We will continue to receive the short end of the stick because of the fundamental non-applicable conditions to help us to understand what democracy is all about. In our democracy, within our constitution, under our rights, captured in chapter 4, and more particularly the dividends, which is also within the constitution, where they tell you that this and this is not justiciable. All these things need to be re-examined so that we can participate, because you continue to disenfranchise the people. You tell them you cannot go to court to challenge that they didn't give you water. You cannot go to court to challenge that they didn't give. So what type of democracy is that? So it is now a legalistic democratic culture that we are trying to. So there has to be a total overhaul. There has to be agitators, people who will crusade, people who will continue, and then we need very patriotic people to come and present themselves to be elected so that they can go and change the law. Just look at the 2023 election. People were shouting obedient and the rest of them, and we elected many people in Labour Party, particularly in Enugu here, where you have a majority number of the legislature in Enugu voted as a member of a particular party, the Labour Party. And all of a sudden, somebody said that, no, if you are a first-timer, you cannot be speaker. And everybody went home, including the political party. So how can the citizens, what else can they do? And all those people we have elected in those parties we thought is the heartbeat of the people, we didn't hear from them again. All of them have changed their jersey. You are talking about democracy. The conditions necessary for democracy does not exist.
Okay, it does not exist. For any reason, you have the ear of government, or there is a constituent assembly where citizens are asked to make some suggestions on how to connect government to the citizens, or how citizens should actually vigorously participate in politics. What may be your 3 recommendations?
First of all, government, so to say, is a regime institution. I don't need to advise any government. I don't give advice. I want to continue to associate.
Advise the citizens on what to do.
I want to continue to associate with what you're doing by bringing me here for me to help in expanding the breadth and width of democracy. We need agitators. We need crusaders. We need people who will say we don't agree. We want to do something. We need people who find big money to go to court to challenge the system without challenging the system, because democracy is embedded in rule of law. There's no government you're advising. We need to create opportunity for a moral leader, a leader that is intellectually at home, a leader that is competitive, a leader that will welcome new ideas, a leader that will welcome people who are more knowledgeable than him and expand the room so that we can have a better society.
Well, if you're still watching, you are still hooked up to Beyond Headlines on Freedom Square TV. We are live on Facebook at Freedom Square TV, and of course, you can watch us on YouTube at Freedom Square TV. Before I bring this to close, do you want to talk to Nigerians?
I am first of all thanking you for creating the condition, the intellectual condition for democracy, for painstakingly bending over backwards, investing your money and time. Maybe it will pay off later. We need good men and women who believe in causes. We need people who will refuse to be bribed. We need people who will not sell their vote. But because of the lack of economic condition for democracy, if you offer somebody 15,000 to sell his vote, even though he's committing a crime, and he's gullible and he will take it. So we need leaders who will not, because of lack of accountability, who will appropriate state fund to use it in buying votes. All of us are going down. Whether you're governor, whether you're president, the nation is sinking. We have children who you can't even identify their handwriting. The families don't have discussion. So there's a moral decadence in the society. Everywhere the currency is money, 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 and no moral rectitude. We have a serious, the nation is on the decline.
Thank you, Mr. IFEANYICHUKWU OKONKWO Onwanobi, for yet again spreading the gospel of a good democratic governance, accountability, and of course, what the citizens must do to actually have a say in governance. It's been quite enriching as always, and we want to thank you for finding time to be here, and we hope the soonest we'll keep on inviting you. Because like you said, this is our moral crusade.
That is so, sir.
Maybe we'll join Zik to say if you throw enough mud on the wall, some will stick. Those who are hard at hearing, who are not even seeing well, we'll keep on talking to them, presenting the facts, they will see and they will hear.
Thank you, and I want to say to you, don't get tired.
No, we will not get tired. And of course, remember, if you are still watching us, that democracy without accountability is empty. We must have accountability in a democratic setting for it to work. Institutions, from what one has said, must be strengthened, and not individuals. Institutions are weak, from INEC to the judiciary, to those who actually should act as watchdog. And you have said it all. You said the press. Who owns the press? He who pays the piper dictates the tune. Citizens must be at the center of governance, not at the margins. Certainly, they must not be at the margins. And government must urgently close the gap between the leaders and the led. Like you said, there could be a French Revolution, there could be a Cuban Revolution, there could be anything. Because Nigerian citizens are getting the short end of the stick. And once again, thank you. And to our viewers, thank you for being there. Remember, democracy is not a spectator sport. Your voice matters, and our voices must always matter. Thank you for being a part of this program. Join us same time tomorrow for yet another interesting edition on Beyond Headlines.